You keep explaining yourself to people who never planned on listening. That's not communication. That's outsourcing. This isn't therapy. It's a reckoning. For the men who've been lied to about love, and the women who sold safety instead of truth. We say the things you're not supposed to say out loud. I'm Author. This is Cuff. Every week, we go deeper. Welcome back to Cuff, episode 32. Today we're covering two musings. The first is musing 117, emotional outsourcing. It's in the show notes, so click it and read it. And that deals what happens when you hand someone your regulation, your certainty, your entire nervous system, and call it intimacy. We're going to sit in two seats today, the outsourcer's seat and the absorber's seat, because both of them are paying the price. They're just paying it differently. Then we're moving into clear coding, the pattern where he tells you exactly who he is, early, plainly, without apology, and you edit it, you soften it, you turn a fact into a maybe. By the end of this episode, you're going to know the difference between a man who's hiding something and a man who's already told you the truth, and you just didn't want to hear it. That's musing 118. Again, go to the show notes, click the link, and read it. Let's get into it. Last week, we covered emotional outsourcing in terms of me absorbing my mother's nervous system. And I'm not going to go through all that again. You should go back to the last episode and read it. I'll link to it in the show notes. But long story short is her outsourcing her nervous system to the people in the room, the people she quote unquote loved, had massive ramifications. For me specifically, it caused me to spend the majority of my life avoiding conflict, avoiding the hard conversations, letting someone down with honesty. So instead, I would edit, alter, deceive, lie, by omission, name it. I would do it to soften the blow in order to not have to feel or deal with someone's rage, anger, sorrow, grief, whatever it might be. I've worked a lot on that, and I'm better because of it. But there is a version of me years and years prior where I did the same thing. If I'm honest about it, and through this writing, I have come to see that I have done it. Let me give you a quick story about what recently clicked in my brain when I was writing this material and working through it. Several years ago, I had started a company with a former best friend, which I feel like if you want to kill a friendship, start a company with your friend. Anyway, it got fairly large. Company grew and grew and grew, and before you knew it, we had 24 employees. There was one day that I thought about recently in particular. It was nothing major, but I've thought about it now, and it means more to me now that I'm doing the work. than it ever did at the time. So one of our mid-level managers had said to, at the time, uh, another executive who I was very, very close with. And he asked this person, because they knew he was close to me, and said, I always have such a hard time reading him and understanding, like, when I should ask for certain things or bring up bad things, or if I have a question, because I never know who I'm going to get. Am I going to get the funny, lighthearted guy that's there most of the time and that people love? Or am I going to get the guy who's cranky, ornery, whatever word you want to use for it? And at the time, my good friend told me, and I just brushed it off as, oh, that's just me, I was having a bad day, or whatever it might be. But thinking about it now, it lands completely different. And I'm not sorry that I behaved in that way, because I wouldn't be making the breakthroughs that I am now. But I allowed myself to leak into everyone else. And that's one example of and that has happened and permeated into my intimate relationships, where the other person would have to absorb my bad day. They were my container where I would put those emotions to help me calm down, reset, or whatever you want to call it. But thinking about that now, there is no space for an actual relationship, for love, for respect, if that person is in a state of hypervigilance. A lot of people will call that walking on eggshells, because that's what it does feel like. And I've talked about growing up in the environment of my childhood home often feel that way. Let's be realistic. If you've ever experienced that, it is exhausting. It is exhausting to always be on alert, to always measure what you're going to say next, because you don't want to create waves, or you don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So your behavior becomes molded by that other person. How can a relationship form in that space? I don't think it can. That person is constantly editing themselves to appease you. That isn't how intimacy is formed. Intimacy requires presence. Presence is showing up as yourself and just being. What we've just talked through is the polar opposite of that. You aren't getting the actual person. You're getting an altered version of them that is shaped by your nervous system leaking into the room and shaping everything. When you think about it in that context, I don't know how you can't see how devastating that is, how It doesn't allow people to genuinely get close to you. And I'm not shaming anyone because that's not what we do here. What we do here is we observe and we name it plainly. We don't point fingers. We don't do any of that. We just call it what it is. And then it's on us individually to decide what we want to do with it. But the thing about clarity is, and this is the beauty of it, yes, at first, it can be uncomfortable. It could be painful, if you want to call it that. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's the beauty of it. Moving on. Musing 118. This is an interesting topic in the sense of I wasn't aware of this whole term or movement or whatever you want to call it called clear coding. I had actually stumbled on this movement, or I don't even know what to call it. And let me rewind a little bit and kind of tell you how I ended up at this accidentally. It's been roughly 4 years since I separated and almost 2 years since I divorced. And in that period of time, I began dating again. Well, there was a huge wake-up call. Oh, when you haven't dated since 2005 and you re-enter the dating scene like 17 years later, a lot has changed for good and bad. I don't know. I don't want to get into that. We'll discuss if it's good or bad down the road. But here's what I will tell you. When I was dating before my marriage, for the most part, you met people at a bar, at the bookstore, at the coffee shop, at work, at school, wherever it might be. Back then, if you met someone online, people would snicker. Now everyone meets online. And going from an analog dating environment to a very digital dating environment had some very big challenges and a large learning curve. For example, I joked in Musing 18 about how I tried Tinder and I kept swiping the right way. That happened. And it felt like a waiting room for a bunch of people waiting for something else, but they didn't know what they were waiting for. Tried Hinge, tried a couple other things, and I got tired of it very quickly because it felt like the vast majority of people were playing games. It was just a big performance. And at that time, I was already in my late 30s, and I was like, this isn't for me. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I want. I know what I'm willing to give. I know what I'm willing to take or what I want, what my needs are. I need to cut out all this nonsense. My best mate in London, also separated and divorced at the same exact time. We also have 3 children, the exact same ages and the exact same order. So we kind of went through this together. And he used what he referred to as the apps. And when he said the apps, he meant every single dating app. He used them all. He had different theories and different ways that he would go about using them. He told me about, at the time, it was called Seeking Arrangement. Now I know people are going to cringe and laugh. I did too. But he told me that, no, it's not what you think. yes, there is that group of quote unquote sugar babies, but there's also another group of people who are honestly tired of the games and just looking for a meaningful relationship. And I thought to myself, the other apps have been terrible. If this one's terrible, oh well, at least I give it a try. I gave it a try, and I will say that I was very, very pleasantly surprised. Yes, there was a lot of the sugar baby, sugar daddy thing, but there was a group of people who just wanted to have a very upfront conversation about what each person was looking for, and to basically fast forward the relationship, skip all the performance, and get to the meat of the matter. Hey, here's what I want. What do you want? Do those align? And if they do, let's give it a go. So I found that very, very refreshing. And I had dated some people and had a bit of luck. But then I met Tabitha. And I was so used to being upfront and honest about what I wanted that we basically fast forwarded through the first 9 months to a year of the relationship. And I laid out exactly what I wanted. And when I mean laid out what I wanted, I mean everything. Physical intimacy, name it. We discussed it early and we were on the same page. We realized pretty immediately we were in sync. Now, let me be very, very realistic, especially with the women listening. If a guy tells you that this is what he wants and needs, you should believe him. He's most likely telling you the truth if you've created that safe space for these conversations. If he says that he doesn't want kids or he probably doesn't want to be married, believe him. Here's the reality. I've known a lot of men, and I have never met a man while growing up and going through life who really actively thought about how much they wanted to be a father. I think what it comes down to is meeting the right person, the right woman, and seeing your future with that person and those children. If he doesn't see that with you, it's probably not going to happen. And you should believe that. This isn't about overriding and thinking that somebody will come around to it. And you really shouldn't want to. Yes, you can like a person, but do you want a relationship or do you want a project? Because if you want a relationship, it's about alignment. Yes, attraction should be there, but attraction is easy. Alignment, that's the difficult part. And clear coding allows you to figure out early if you're aligned. If you're not, cut your losses and move on. The idea that you create the space to have these conversations and then you don't want to believe what the person is telling you or what their needs are or wants and think, oh, well, if we're together for a year, maybe he'll change his mind. Why would you want to start a relationship off on that? If he's clearly telling you, hey, I don't think I want children. I don't know that I want to be married for a first time or again or whatever it is. That's not your person. Find your person. Find alignment. Because again, attraction is easy. alignment, that is difficult. And that is really what maintains and allows a relationship to sustain itself and be durable against the ups and downs of everyday life. So if he tells you something, your best bet is believe him. Because when he doesn't come around and there's heartbreak or, whatever you want to call it, that's not on him. He told you. That's on not believing him, thinking you're going to change him, and really about your expectations. So it is a slippery slope, but at the end of the day, your best bet is just believe. That's this episode. I hope you're having a great week. As always, hold the standard, stay close.